The ship landed on the white stone platform of the palace. The doors opened slowly and a single human male walked out. His name was. He was 32 years old, tall, with black hair and quiet eyes. He wore simple gray clothes. He carried nothing with him. Hundreds of nobles stood watching. They were tall creatures with pale blue skin and silver eyes. Their bodies were thin and elegant. They wore robes of silk and gold. They looked at the human like he was a small insect that had crawled into their beautiful home. Walked forward. He did not look left or right. He kept his eyes on the ground and moved with slow, careful steps. The nobles whispered to each other. Some of them laughed softly. "This is the gift from Earth," one noble said. "A single male, how insulting." "Look at him," another said. "So small, so weak. Humans are truly pathetic creatures." Heard every word. His face showed nothing. He continued walking until he reached the bottom of the great stairs. There he stopped and waited. At the top of the stairs stood Princess. She was the only daughter of Emperor, ruler of the empire. She was beautiful in the way her people were beautiful, tall, graceful, with skin like moonlight and hair like silver water. Her eyes were cold as winter ice. She looked down at the human. Her face showed no emotion, but inside she felt only anger and shame. This creature was to be her husband. This weak, small, ugly thing from a weak, small planet. It was an insult that burned in her chest like fire. The treaty between Earth and the Empire had been signed 6 months ago. The humans had nothing they wanted, no advanced technology, no rare resources, no military power. But Earth sat in an important location between 3 great empires. The needed peace with humans to protect their trading routes. And so Emperor had demanded a political marriage. He wanted a human in the palace, someone who would remind everyone that Earth belonged to the Empire now. The humans had sent. No one knew who was. No one cared. He was just a human. Princess walked down the stairs slowly. Each step was perfect and graceful. She stopped in front of. He was only a little taller than her, which surprised her. She had expected all humans to be very small. "Look at me," she commanded. Raised his eyes. For a moment, something passed between them, a flash of something in his dark eyes that she could not understand. Then it was gone, and he looked empty again. "You are to be my husband," said. Her voice was flat and cold. "But you will never be my equal. You will never share my bed. You will never sit beside me at court. You are here because of politics, nothing more. Do you understand?" "Yes," Princess said. His voice was soft and calm. "You will live in the east wing of the palace. You will not enter the main halls without permission. You will not speak to nobles unless they speak to you first. You will not embarrass me or my family. Do you understand?" "Yes," Princess stared at him. She wanted him to show anger or sadness or fear. She wanted some reaction. But his face remained calm and empty like still water. It made her more angry. "Take him away," she said to the guards. "Show him to his rooms." The guards grabbed his arms roughly and pulled him toward the palace. He did not resist. He walked between them like a prisoner, though he had committed no crime. The wedding ceremony happened 3 days later. It was small and quiet. Only a few nobles attended, and they came only to laugh at the human. Wore a simple dress instead of the grand wedding robes of her people. She refused to honor this marriage with beauty. Stood beside her in the same gray clothes he had worn when he arrived. He spoke the words he was told to speak. He signed the documents he was told to sign. When the ceremony ended, walked away without looking at him. That night sat alone in his small room in the east wing. The room was clean but empty. There were no decorations on the walls. The bed was hard. The window looked out at a small garden that no one visited. He sat by the window and looked at the strange stars of this alien world. They were different from the stars of Earth. Everything here was different. The air smelled wrong. The light was too blue. The sounds of the palace were cold and distant. But did not feel sad. He had known what this would be. He had chosen it. On Earth, he had been something else, something dangerous, something that people feared. He had commanded ships and soldiers. He had won battles that should have been impossible. His name had been spoken in whispers across a dozen worlds. But war had broken something inside him. He had seen too much death. He had caused too much death. When the call came for someone to go to the Empire, someone unimportant, someone who would not be missed, had volunteered. He wanted peace. He wanted to be forgotten. He wanted to live a quiet life far from the fires of war. The nobles thought he was weak. Princess thought he was pathetic. That was good. That was what he wanted. Let them see only a small, quiet human. Let them never know what he truly was. Closed his eyes and listened to the silence of his empty room. Somewhere in the palace, his wife was sleeping in her grand chambers, surrounded by servants and luxury. She hated him. He understood. He did not blame her. He was nothing to her. He was nothing to anyone here. And that was exactly what he wanted to be. Outside, the alien stars burned cold and distant. The night was quiet. Somewhere far away across the dark ocean of space, there were wars being fought and soldiers dying. But not here. Here there was only peace. Let out a slow breath and allowed himself to relax. For the first time in many years, he felt something close to calm. He did not know that this peace would not last. He did not know that darkness was coming to this world, darkness that would force him to become what he had tried so hard to forget. For now he was just a human, just an unwanted husband, just a quiet man in a small room. But inside him, buried deep, the god of war was only sleeping. 3 years passed in the palace, 3 years of silence, 3 years of shadows. Learned to live like a ghost. He woke early each morning before the sun rose. He washed himself with cold water. He dressed in simple clothes, always gray, always plain. Then he went to the gardens. The gardens of the East Wing had been abandoned for many years. No one cared for them anymore. The flowers had died. The trees were wild and overgrown. The stone paths were cracked and covered with dead leaves. Made the gardens his work. Each day he pulled out the weeds. He planted new flowers. He cleaned the paths and repaired the broken stones. He did everything slowly and carefully with his own hands. The servants watched him sometimes. They thought he was strange. What kind of noble husband worked in the dirt like a common farmer? But they did not say anything to him. He was beneath their notice. Princess never came to the East Wing. In 3 years had seen her only a handful of times, always from far away, always by accident. She walked through the main halls with her head high and her silver eyes cold. She never looked at him. She pretended he did not exist. This was good, told himself. This was what he wanted. But sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, he wondered what it would be like to have someone to talk to. He wondered what it would be like to sit with another person and share a meal. He wondered what it would be like to hear someone say his name with warmth instead of contempt. He pushed these thoughts away. He had chosen this life. He had no right to complain. The nobles of the court continued to mock him. When they saw him in the halls, they would laugh and whisper to each other. Some of them spoke insults directly to his face, knowing he could not respond. "Look, the human is still alive," they would say, "like a pet that refuses to die. Does he still sleep in that small room? How pathetic. Even our servants have better quarters. I heard he works in the gardens like a slave. Truly, humans are born to serve." Listen to all of this. He never responded. He kept his eyes down and walked past them. His face showed nothing. But sometimes, late at night, his hands would shake. Not from fear or sadness, from something else. Something he fought hard to control. The violence inside him never truly went away. It slept, but it was always there. When the nobles insulted him, when they pushed him or laughed at him, something dark would stir in his chest. His body would remember the feeling of battle. His hands would remember the weight of weapons. He would breathe slowly. He would count to 10. He would think of the gardens and the flowers and the quiet morning light, and slowly the darkness would go back to sleep. One day in the second year, something unexpected happened. Was working in the garden when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned and saw a young servant girl. She was, with pale blue skin and nervous silver eyes. She carried a small box in her hands. "Forgive me," she said quickly. "I did not mean to disturb you." Stood up slowly. "You are not disturbing me." The girl looked surprised. She had expected him to be rude or angry. All the nobles were rude and angry. "I am Myra," she said. "I work in the kitchens. I came to bring you this." She held out the box. "The head cook said to throw it away, but I thought you might want it." Opened the box. Inside were some fruits and bread, food that was old but still good. "Why?" he asked. Myra looked down at her feet. "I saw you working in the garden. Every day you work so hard, but no one brings you proper food. They only give you the worst scraps. I thought that was not fair." Looked at her for a long moment. Then, for the first time in many months, he smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was real. "Thank you, Myra," he said. "This is very kind." Myra's face turned slightly purple, the way of blushing. "It is nothing," she said quickly. Then she turned and hurried away. After that day, Myra came to the garden often. She would bring small gifts of food or tools or seeds for planting. She would talk to about the palace and the servants and the noble families. He would listen quietly and sometimes ask questions. It was not friendship exactly. Myra was still afraid of him, afraid of what the other servants would think if they knew she was talking to the human. But it was something. It was a small light in the darkness of his life. Princess knew nothing about any of this. She spent her days in the grand halls of the palace, attending meetings and ceremonies and parties. She was being prepared to become the next empress. Her father was old and sick, and soon she would have to take his place. The weight of this responsibility pressed down on her like a heavy stone. She had no one to share it with. Her mother had died when she was young. Her father was cold and distant. The nobles around her only wanted power and favor. Sometimes, late at night, would stand at her window and look out at the stars. She would think about her strange husband in the East Wing. She had not spoken to him since their wedding day. She had tried to forget he existed. But sometimes she wondered about him. What did he do all day? What did he think about? Did he hate her for treating him so badly? She pushed these thoughts away. It did not matter. He was just a human. He was nothing. In the third year, rumors began to spread through the palace. Dark rumors, frightening rumors. The horde was moving. They were an ancient enemy of the empire. They were warriors who lived only for battle and conquest. For 50 years they had been quiet, building their strength in the dark regions of space. But now they were waking up. Scout ships reported massive fleets gathering near the border. Communications from distant colonies went silent. Trading ships disappeared without a trace. Fear spread through the palace like a disease. The nobles whispered in corners. The servants worked with nervous hands. Even Emperor, old and sick as he was, called emergency meetings of his war council. Princess attended these meetings. She listened to the generals argue about defense and strategy. She watched her father's face grow more pale and tired each day. She felt the fear growing in her own heart. War was coming, everyone knew it. The only question was when. In the East Wing continued his quiet life. He worked in the gardens. He ate his simple meals. He slept in his small room. But he also heard the rumors. He saw the fear in the servants' faces. He noticed the soldiers moving through the palace with new urgency. And deep inside him, something began to stir. The darkness that he had worked so hard to bury. The part of himself that he had tried to forget. The god of war was waking up. Stood in his garden one evening, looking up at the darkening sky. The stars were appearing one by one, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, death was coming for this world, coming for this palace, coming for the princess who had never spoken a kind word to him. He did not know yet what he would do when that darkness arrived. He only knew that he could not run from it forever. His hands stopped shaking. His breathing became slow and steady. Whatever came next, he would be ready. The attack came at midnight. There was no warning. One moment the sky above the palace was quiet and dark, filled with peaceful stars. The next moment, fire rained down from the heavens. Woke to the sound of explosions. The walls of his room shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Through his window, he could see the night sky burning orange and red. He moved without thinking. His body remembered what to do even after 3 years of peace. He rolled out of bed and landed in a crouch. He grabbed the small knife he kept hidden under his mattress, the only weapon he had allowed himself to keep. Another explosion, closer this time. The floor cracked beneath his feet. Ran to the window and looked out. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Hundreds of ships filled the sky. They were black and angular, built for war. They poured fire down on the palace and the city below. Bright beams of energy cut through buildings like swords through paper. Smoke rose everywhere. The horde had come. Watched for only a moment, then he turned and ran. The halls of the East Wing were chaos. Servants screamed and ran in every direction. Some were injured, bleeding from cuts and burns. Others lay still on the ground, not moving at all. Grabbed a young servant by the arm. It was Myra, her face wet with tears. "The escape routes," he said quickly. "Where are they?" Myra could not speak. She was shaking too hard. Myra's voice was calm but firm. "Look at me. You need to tell me where the escape routes are, the tunnels under the palace." Myra swallowed hard. The main hall. There is a hidden door behind the throne. It leads to tunnels that go outside the city. "Good, take the other servants and go there now. Do not stop for anything. Do you understand?" Myra nodded, then she grabbed his hand. "What about you? You have to come with us." Gently removed her hand. "I will come later. First, I need to find someone." Before Myra could say anything else was gone. He ran through the burning halls, moving faster than any could follow. Smoke filled the air. The heat was terrible, but he did not slow down. He needed to find the princess. In the main palace, everything was worse. Bodies lay everywhere, guards, nobles, servants. The soldiers had already entered the building. They were huge creatures, twice the size of humans, with thick gray skin and red eyes that glowed in the firelight. They carried massive weapons and wore heavy armor. Moved through the shadows like smoke. The soldiers did not see him. They were too busy killing and destroying. They did not notice the small human sliding past them in the darkness. He found Princess in her private chambers. The door had been broken down. 2 of her personal guards lay dead on the floor. 3 soldiers stood inside the room, surrounding the princess. Stood with her back against the wall. Her silver dress was torn and dirty. Her face was pale with fear, but she held a small energy blade in her hands, pointing it at the soldiers. "Stay back," she said. Her voice shook, but she did not lower the weapon. The soldiers laughed. Their laughter was deep and ugly. "Little princess thinks she can fight," one of them said. "How amusing. The emperor's daughter will make a fine trophy for our commander." "Or perhaps we should just kill her now," another said. "What use is a trophy that causes trouble?" His hands trembled. She knew she could not win. She knew she was going to die. But she refused to beg or cry. She was a princess of the empire. She would die with dignity. The lead soldier stepped forward, raising his weapon. And then was there. He moved so fast that barely saw him. One moment she was alone with the soldiers. The next moment, a figure in gray stood between her and death. The first soldier died before he could react. A small knife found the gap in his armor, slipping between the plates and into his throat. The soldier made a choking sound and fell. The second soldier swung his massive weapon, ducked under it and drove his knife into the soldier's knee. The soldier screamed and collapsed, took his weapon and turned. The third soldier hesitated. That hesitation cost him his life, crossed the distance between them in 2 steps and buried the knife in his eye. 3 soldiers, 3 seconds, all dead. Stared at her husband. Her mouth was open. Her eyes were wide. She could not understand what she had just seen. Turned to face her. His face was calm, but his eyes had changed. They were no longer empty and quiet. They were dark and deep, like holes into endless night. "We need to move," he said. "More soldiers will come." Could not speak, could not move. This man, this small, quiet human she had ignored for 3 years, had just killed 3 warriors like they were nothing. "Princess," his voice was sharp, "now." Nodded weakly and followed him. They moved through the burning palace. Everywhere they went, there was death and destruction. The beautiful halls that had known her whole life were now filled with smoke and blood. Led her through paths she did not know existed. He seemed to know the palace better than she did. He knew where the soldiers were before they appeared. He knew which doors were safe and which were not. Twice they encountered soldiers. Both times killed them before they could raise the alarm. He moved like water, like shadow, like death itself. The soldiers never stood a chance. Watched him with new eyes. Who was this man? What was he? They reached a small storage room near the center of the palace, closed the door behind them and listened carefully. "We cannot reach the main escape tunnels," he said quietly. "They have taken the throne room. We need another way out." "There is no other way," said. Her voice was hollow. "The tunnels are the only escape. We are trapped." Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "There is always another way." He looked at her directly. In the dim light, his face was half in shadow. "Do you trust me?" he asked. Did not know how to answer. Trust him. She did not even know him. She had spent 3 years treating him like garbage. She had never spoken to him, never looked at him, never thought of him as a real person. And now he was the only thing standing between her and death. "I don't know you," she whispered. Nodded slowly. "That is true, but I am your husband, and I will not let you die." He turned back to the door. Outside, they could hear the heavy footsteps of more soldiers approaching. "Stay behind me," said. "When I tell you to run, you run. Do not look back, do not stop, no matter what happens." Wanted to ask more questions. She wanted to know who he really was. She wanted to understand how a simple human could fight like this. But there was no time. The door burst open and the soldiers poured in. Met them like a storm meets the shore. And Princess watched as her unwanted husband became something more than human, something terrifying and beautiful and utterly unstoppable. She watched as he became a god of war. The storage room became a slaughterhouse. 5 soldiers came through the door, 5 of the Empire's most feared warriors, each one tall and strong and armed with weapons that could cut through metal like butter. Killed them all in 12 seconds. He did not fight like the warriors had seen in training. He did not stand tall and proud. He did not follow forms or patterns. He fought like an animal, fast, brutal, and without mercy. He used everything around him as a weapon, the soldiers' own weapons, broken pieces of furniture, his bare hands. He moved between them like smoke, always where they did not expect, always striking at their weak points. When the last soldier fell, was covered in blood. Most of it was not his own. He turned to, "We need to go." Stepped over the bodies. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were shaking, but she followed him. They moved deeper into the palace, found a service corridor that the servants used. It was narrow and dark, but it was empty. The soldiers had not discovered it yet. As they walked, found her voice. "Who are you?" she asked. "Really?" Did not answer immediately. He kept moving, his eyes always watching the shadows ahead. "I am your husband," he said finally, "of Earth." That is not an answer. It is the only answer I have." They continued in silence, but's mind would not rest. She remembered the way he had moved, the way he had killed. She had seen the greatest warriors of the Empire in action. None of them moved like that. None of them were that fast, that precise, that deadly. They reached a junction where two corridors met, stopped and listened. 20 soldiers ahead, he said quietly. They are guarding something, probably the old water tunnels. That is our way out. 20, felt her heart sink. You cannot fight 20. Looked at her, there was no fear in his eyes, no hesitation. Yes, he said simply, I can. He stepped into the open corridor before she could stop him. The soldiers saw him immediately. They raised their weapons and charged. What happened next would stay in his memory forever. Walked toward them, just walked, slow and steady, like he was taking a stroll through the garden. The soldiers fired their weapons at him. Bright beams of energy filled the corridor. Moved through them like they were raindrops. He twisted and turned and ducked, never stopping, never slowing. Not a single shot touched him. Then he was among them. The corridor became chaos. Soldiers screamed. Weapons fired wildly. Bodies fell. Moved from soldier to soldier, killing each one with terrible efficiency. He broke necks. He crushed throats. He used their own weapons against them. He was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost made of death. Some of the soldiers tried to run. Did not let them. He caught them from behind, cutting them down before they could take 3 steps. The whole battle lasted less than a minute. When it was over, 20 soldiers lay dead on the ground, stood among them, breathing hard. He had taken some wounds, cuts on his arms, a burn on his shoulder, but he was still standing, still alive. Walked toward him slowly. Her whole body was shaking. "What are you?" she whispered. Wiped blood from his face. He looked tired now, not physically tired, but tired in a deeper way, tired in his soul. "I was a soldier once," he said, "a commander. I led the 3rd Fleet of Earth through the wars." His breath caught. Even she had heard of the wars. 12 years ago, a powerful alien race had tried to destroy Earth. The humans had fought back. Against all expectations, against all logic, they had won. The humans who won that war, she said slowly. They were called demons by their enemies. They were called. The Reapers finished. Yes, I was one of them. I was their leader. Stared at him. The Reapers, the most feared human soldiers in the galaxy, the ones who had turned the tide of an unwinnable war, the ones whose very name made enemy commanders surrender without fighting. And one of them had been living in her palace for 3 years, working in a garden, eating scraps, sleeping in a small room like a servant. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you come here? Why did you let us treat you like dirt?" Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "I killed thousands of people in that war," he said. "Tens of thousands. I was good at it, too good. When the war ended, I looked at my hands and saw only blood. I could not sleep. I could not think. I could not be around other people without seeing them as threats." He paused. "I wanted to find peace. I wanted to be somewhere far from war. When the Empire asked for a human to send as a political husband, I volunteered. I thought I could be someone else here, someone quiet, someone harmless, someone who was not a monster." Did not know what to say. She had spent 3 years hatting this man, looking down on him, treating him worse than an animal. And all that time, he had been carrying this terrible weight inside him. "I am sorry," she said quietly. It was not enough. She knew it was not enough, but it was all she had. Looked at her. For a moment, something human appeared in his eyes, something tired and sad and fragile. "You did not know," he said. "How could you know? I did not want anyone to know." A distant explosion shook the corridor. His eyes immediately became sharp again. "We need to keep moving," he said. "The tunnels are just ahead." They walked through the fallen soldiers and into a large room with an old metal door in the floor. Pulled it open, revealing a dark tunnel below. "This leads outside the city," he said. Once you are out, head east. There is a small village 3 days away. You can find help there. Started to climb down, then stopped. What about you? Did not answer. You are not coming, said. It was not a question. The commander is in the palace, said. His name is General. He is the one leading this attack. If he is not stopped, he will hunt you across the planet. He will burn every village until he finds you. So you are going to fight him, alone. Smiled. It was a small, sad smile. I have been running from what I am for 3 years, he said. Tonight I stopped running. Climbed back up out of the tunnel. She stood in front of and looked directly into his eyes. Then I am coming with you, she said. No, it is too dangerous. I am the princess of the empire. This is my home. These are my people dying. I will not hide while you fight my battles. They stared at each other. Two people who had never truly seen each other before this night. Two people who were finally seeing each other now. You will stay behind me, said finally. You will do exactly what I tell you, and if I tell you to run, you will run. Nodded, I will. Closed the tunnel door. Then he turned and walked back into the burning palace. And followed him. Followed her husband. Followed the god of war. The throne room was on fire. The beautiful white walls that had known since childhood were now black with smoke. The golden pillars had fallen. The crystal windows were shattered, and on her father's throne sat General, commander of the horde. He was massive, even for a nearly 3 meters tall, with armor made of black metal and weapons that glowed with deadly energy. His face was covered in scars from 100 battles. His red eyes burned with cruel intelligence. Around him stood 50 of his best soldiers, the elite warriors of the horde, and at his feet, chained and bleeding, was Emperor. His father. Ah, said Wen and entered the throne room. The little princess has come, and she brought a pet. He laughed. His soldiers laughed with him. Walked forward slowly. He had taken weapons from the fallen soldiers, a blade in each hand, a short sword on his back. His gray clothes were stained with blood and burned in places, but he moved like he was taking a simple walk. You are General, said. His voice was calm and flat. Leaned forward on the throne. And you are a human. I did not know there were any humans on this planet. How interesting. How did you survive my soldiers? Your soldiers are dead. Smile faded slightly, all of them. All that I found, maybe 70, maybe 80, I stopped counting. The throne room went quiet. The soldiers looked at each other. 70 or 80 of their brothers killed by this small creature. Stood up slowly. He was so large that he blocked the light behind him. You are lying, he said. No human could kill that many warriors. Raised his blades. Come and find out. For a long moment, no one moved, then made a gesture with his hand. Kill him, he said. 20 soldiers charged. Had seen fight before, but this was different. This was not a battle. This was a massacre. Moved through the soldiers like wind through leaves. His blades sang in the air, cutting and slashing without pause. Soldiers fell around him like rain. Some died before they even saw him. Others died reaching for weapons they would never use. The other soldiers watched in horror. They had never seen anything like this. This was not combat. This was death given human form. In less than a minute, 20 elite warriors lay dead on the ground. Stood among them, his blades dripping red. He was breathing hard now. Some of his old wounds had opened. Blood ran down his arms and dripped from his fingers. But his eyes were steady, clear, calm. More, he said to, send more. His face had gone pale. He looked at the human, this small, weak human, and felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. What are you? He whispered. Did not answer. He walked toward the throne, stepping over the bodies of the fallen. The remaining soldiers backed away. They could not make themselves attack. Every instinct told them to run, to flee, to get away from this creature as fast as possible. Drew his own weapon, a massive blade that crackled with energy. He was the greatest warrior of the Horde. He had never lost a fight. He had never retreated from any enemy. But his hands were shaking. "Stay back," he commanded. "Stay back." Kept walking. Swung his blade with all his strength. The attack would have cut a normal person in half. Was not there. He had moved faster than the eye could follow. He was behind now. Spun around, swinging wildly, ducked under the blade and struck. Once, twice, 3 times. Screamed. His weapon fell from his hands. He looked down and saw that it had cut the tendons in both his arms. He could not lift them anymore. He fell to his knees. Stood over him, one blade pressed against his throat. "Your fleet," said quietly. "Call them off, tell them to retreat." Never spat. "I would rather die." "That can be arranged, but first you will watch me kill every soldier in this room, one by one, slowly. And then I will find your ships and kill everyone on them too. I will turn your horde into a memory, a warning, a story that other armies will tell their children to frighten them." His voice was still calm, still quiet. That made it worse. "I was the commander of Earth's 3rd Fleet," continued. "I won the wars. Do you know how many enemies I killed in those years? Do you know what they called me?" His eyes went wide. Understanding flooded his face. "The Reaper," he whispered. "You are the Reaper of—" "Yes, now call off your fleet, or die knowing that your horde will follow you into darkness." For a long moment was silent. Then, slowly, he reached for the communication device on his belt. "All ships," he said, his voice broken. "Retreat, full retreat, leave this world." There was confused chatter from the device, questions, arguments, but repeated the order again and again until the fleet began to pull back. Watched from across the room. She had not moved during the entire battle. She had been frozen, not with fear, but with wonder. This man, this quiet, gentle man who had worked in her gardens for 3 years, this husband she had ignored and insulted and forgotten. He had just saved her world. The remaining soldiers fled the throne room. They ran like frightened children, desperate to escape. No one tried to stop them. No one cared. Dropped his weapons and walked to where Emperor lay in chains. He broke the chains with his bare hands and helped the old man sit up. The Emperor looked at him with clouded eyes. You are the human, the one I brought here to insult my daughter." "Yes," said. "And you saved us." "Yes." The Emperor was quiet for a moment. Then he did something he had never done before in his long life. He bowed his head to a human. "Forgive me," he said. "I did not know what you were." Helped him to his feet. "You are injured. We need to find a healer." Servants were already rushing into the throne room, survivors who had hidden during the attack. They took the Emperor and began treating his wounds. Walked too. She stood in front of him, looking up at his face. He was covered in blood and dirt. His body was wounded in a dozen places. He looked exhausted, broken, barely standing. But his eyes were peaceful. "Thank you," said. The words seemed too small, too weak, but she did not know what else to say. Looked at her. For the first time since she had known him, he really looked at her, not with empty eyes or hidden pain, but with something real, something warm. "I made a promise," he said. "On our wedding day, I promised to protect you. I know you did not hear it, I know you did not care, but I made it anyway." Felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not try to stop them. "I heard you," she whispered. "I just did not understand." She reached out and took his hand. His fingers were rough and they had killed so many tonight, but they were also gentle. They had planted flowers. They had tended gardens. They had built beauty in the middle of her palace while she was too blind to see. "I see you now," said. "I finally see you." Smiled, a real smile, the first one she had ever seen on his face. "That is enough," he said. "That is more than I ever hoped for." Outside, the sun was rising, the fires were dying down, the ships were fleeing into the stars. The war was over, the palace was damaged but standing, the empire was hurt but alive. And in the middle of the ruined throne room, a princess and her husband stood together. Two people who had started as strangers, two people who had found each other in the darkness of war. Did not know what the future would bring. She did not know if they could build something real from these broken pieces, but she knew one thing for certain. She would never look away from him again. Her husband, her protector, her god of war. And in the quiet of the morning light, she knelt before him. Not because he demanded it, not because he was powerful, but because he had chosen her, even when she had never chosen him. And that, she understood now, was the truest kind of love.